This is Cast of Wonders, the young adult fiction podcast featuring stories of the fantastic. Welcome to Camp Myth. Chapter 15, January 1st, 2014. Happy New Year, campers, and welcome to this, the final chapter of Phoenix Watching, Chapter 15. What's happened to Felix? Are Argy and Moxie okay? What happened to the Phoenix that prompted it to attack, and how are its inferno feathers still intact? Pay close attention, campers. Our tale is almost over.
Camp Myth, Phoenix Watching, by Chris Lewis Carter. Chapter 15. When I finally regained consciousness, I was lying on a cot, looking up at a knotty wood ceiling. My head felt heavy, like it was filled with wet cement, and my skin itched terribly. With my senses slowly returning, I realized that something was pressing on my chest. I glanced down to see a small bird, snow white like a dove, staring intently into my eyes. I screamed and sat bolt upright, but the bird was unfazed by my reaction. It simply hopped backwards onto my knee, not once blinking or breaking its gaze from mine. Outside the window on my right, I could see a group of minotaurs playing a game of soccer. Not only was I still alive, I was back at camp. A wrinkled old redcap wearing blue scrubs darted into the room.
No need for scream, boy. You in safe place.
My throat felt as though I'd been gargling ashes. "Where am I?" I croaked.
You in first aid cabin. I Nurse Withers.
She motioned to the bird standing on my knee.
He name Caduceus.
Its eyes were still locked upon me. What's it doing?
Caduceus is pet Caladrius bird.
She explained.
Very rare, very special. He know if you sick. If you hurt bad, if you soon die, he no look at you if soon die. That is his way. He watch over you while you sleep.
Nurse Withers snapped her bony fingers and Caduceus flew to her shoulder.
You had nasty burn. Hand in bad shape. I fix it, but you be more careful now. No more play near campfire.
Campfire? Is that what she thought had happened to me? My brain felt like a film reel with half the scenes missing. The last thing I remembered was being engulfed by a cone of flame from the injured Phoenix. I'd felt the heat consume me, watched the fire swirl across my body. I touched my face expecting to find bandages or patches of charred flesh, but everything felt perfectly normal. I lightly prodded the skin with my fingertips, testing for any numbness or loss of sensation, but I could detect every touch. After further investigation, the only bandaged part of my body was my left hand, and even that didn't hurt much, save for a dull throbbing in my palm. I was fine. It didn't make any sense. There was a knock at the cabin door. Nurse Withers vanished for a moment, then returned with Argy and Moxie trailing behind her.
"Felix!"
Argy exclaimed.
"You're okay! It's a miracle!"
Oh, don't be so melodramatic.
Moxie said, elbowing him in the side.
It was only a little burn, see? He's fine.
She shot me a knowing look, so I just nodded. Yeah, nothing to it. Nurse Withers shook her head, then motioned for me to get up.
Okay, you free to go. Keep bandage on hand for next day or two. Run along now. I don't want to see you again for rest of summer.
She patted Caduceus on the head.
He don't want to see you again either.
We exited the first aid cabin and were barely down the front steps before I said, "Okay, someone needs to start talking. What's going on?"
We could ask you the exact same thing,
Moxie replied.
How much do you remember about the Forgotten Forest?
The edges of my mind were beginning to realign. Too much, actually. Being chased by the Stymphalian, escaping the Thunderbird, Althea...
About the Phoenix, I mean. When it attacked us.
I shrugged. That's where it gets weird. For some reason, the last thing I remember is a phoenix creating some kind of fiery tornado and us being caught inside it. I waved my bandages. But clearly that isn't true, or else I'd have a lot more problems than a slightly burnt hand. Argy and Moxie stopped walking and looked at each other, as though both of them knew what to say, but neither of them knew quite how to say it.
Well, here's the thing,
Argy said.
That's exactly what happened.
What? My head was starting to hurt. Nothing made any sense.
It's true,
Moxie said.
1 second you were lost in the flames. The next, you were passed out on the ground with barely a scratch on you, and the fire was gone, along with the phoenix. We were pretty freaked out, so we found the main trail and ran back to camp as fast as we could. Argy carried you the entire way. He didn't even stop to use his inhaler.
He shrugged, but I could tell that he was bursting with pride. That was the closest thing to a compliment Moxie had ever given him.
It wasn't a big deal,
he said.
I'm just glad you're okay.
Moxie nodded.
Anyway, we brought you to the first aid cabin and told the nurse that you'd burnt your hand while practicing to light a campfire. We said that you'd passed out from shock.
She seemed to believe it too.
Argy added.
Of course she did.
Moxie said.
What do you think she would have said if we'd told her that Felix had been caught up in a tornado of phoenix fire? For one, he should have been burnt to a crisp. And two, phoenixes on campgrounds aren't supposed to be able to start fires at all. Their inferno feathers are supposed to be removed before they're released into the forest, remember?
Don't forget, it was injured too, I said, which means that someone or something tried to either catch it or kill it. Moxie's tail raised over her shoulder and pointed toward the centre of the camp.
Well, maybe that's what he wants to talk about.
Who? I asked.
Remember Asterion, the head counsellor? He approached us after we brought you to the nurse.
Argy explained.
He wanted to meet with the three of us by the Pedaxion tree after you'd been released. He said it was important.
We set out across the grounds, passing dozens of smiling campers along the way. Between the perfect sky and the cool breeze, it was almost impossible to think that we were all nearly roasted alive only a few hours before.
Oh, wait. Do you want to hear the worst part out of everything that happened?
She asked. She slumped her shoulders in defeat, then said,
We actually forgot to take the stupid picture.
We found Asterion sitting at the base of the tree, as promised, watching rocks race across the sky with gigantic buckets clutched in their talons. He waved at us with his three-fingered hand as we approached, then eased himself back to his feet and leaned against the trunk.
Ah, there he is,
he rasped.
How are you feeling, Felix?
I'm fine, sir, thank you, I said nervously. Just a little accident, that's all.
The first injury of the season,
he said.
You know, in Minotaur culture, it's tradition to celebrate the first to become wounded in a large battle. My people feel it represents a warrior spirit, an eagerness to achieve victory. It's a dubious honour, but an honour nonetheless.
Asterion gazed up at the leaves of the Peridexian tree, his face dappled with light from their protective glow.
You're quite fortunate, you know. Not everyone survives an encounter with a wild phoenix. Inferno feathers generate an incredible amount of magical energy. In fact, they're one of the most prized objects in the entire mythic community.
I glanced at Argy and Moxie, assuming that one of them had told the head counsellor about our adventure in the forest, but they both looked completely shocked at his words. Asterion had a wheezing chuckle, then said,
This old bull has seen his fair share of magic. One cannot be exposed to phoenix fire without it leaving an imprint of some kind. I can detect its aura surrounding you even now. It's most impressive.
The itchiness of my skin was fading, becoming more of a tingling sensation, like my entire body was falling asleep. It was badly injured when it attacked us, sir, I said. It must have been ambushed by something in the forest. What could do something like that to a phoenix? He rubbed the fleshy lines of scar tissue on his forehead.
That's quite difficult to say. While the bird has no real predators, any number of creatures might have attempted to kill it for their morning meal, assuming they were hungry enough. The food chain is a savage, yet inevitable part of all nature, both human and mythic. Fortunately, you were able to overcome the Phoenix's wrath without incident.
I shook my head. That's the thing, sir. I still don't understand what happened. The truth is, I didn't do anything. He grinned.
Precisely, my dear boy. And that is what saved your life. All of our lives.
I tilted my head to one side. Meaning what exactly? Asterion motioned for me to come closer, and I did.
Believe it or not, Felix, it appears that you are what some refer to as a crucible. It's a rare phenomenon within the mythic community, but I've seen quite a few of them in my time. It typically occurs within creatures from a magical background, such as the Fae, but other races have been known to produce them as well.
He clapped me on the shoulder.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but is it fair to assume you've not embraced the traditions of Fae culture as much as others in your family would have liked?
I was dumbstruck by his intuition. Yes, sir. In fact, I've always been much more interested in the human world. That's actually why my parents wanted me to attend camp in the first place, to keep me from getting into more mischief. He nodded, and his broken horn glimmered in the sunlight.
Ah, yes, that likely explains it. You see, all Fae require a certain amount of magical energy in order to survive. For most, this energy is sustained by simply living within a community of other magical creatures. Their auras mingle and are nourished from one another. However, some are capable of holding far more of this energy than others. Since all Fae continually surround themselves with the mystical arts, this is not typically an issue, but in your case...
I've avoided all kinds of magical study for as long as I can remember, I confirmed.
Exactly. For your entire life you've been like a sponge that avoids water. But when a Fae with an incredibly high tolerance for magical energy suddenly encounters an overwhelmingly large quantity of that energy, for example, the flames of a phoenix, instead of being consumed by it, and they are instead able to absorb it. That, my boy, is what happened to you today.
I couldn't believe it. All this time, other Fae had been looking down on me for steering clear of magic, and now that was the only reason I was still alive. It's an even bigger shame that my kind aren't familiar with the term irony. Asterion gestured at my bandages.
Perhaps you should take a look and see for yourself.
I unwrapped layer after layer of gauze from my hand until it was completely exposed, then heard my friends gasp. To be fair, I couldn't believe what I was looking at either. A mark shaped like a feather was etched into the centre of my palm. It was cool to the touch, but the outline glowed like a dying ember. Argy and Moxie stared at it with dropped jaws, but Asterion just smiled knowingly.
My kind would refer to you as a torchbearer, one who has been bound to the sacred fire. You have embraced the essence of a phoenix, and that bond will not fade any time soon.
At that, he reached into his tunic pocket and revealed 3 red merit badges with fiery feathers stitched across their fronts.
Congratulations, campers. After what we have witnessed here today, I have no doubt that you 3 are now accomplished Phoenix Watchers.
We each took a badge and shook Asterion's good hand.
Wow! Thank you, sir.
Argy beamed.
Yeah, thanks.
Moxie echoed. I couldn't remember ever feeling happier, but something was still gnawing at the back of my mind. Sir, can I ask why the Phoenix was able to create fire in the first place? Asterion stroked his chin in contemplation.
That I do not know. But rest assured, I'll be speaking with the entire bestiary staff to find out how such an oversight could have taken place. In the meantime, we've just about extinguished the fire, and a team of dryads have been dispatched to regrow the forest. By tomorrow morning, everything should be back to normal. After all, camp has only just begun, and there are still plenty of badges for you to discover.
He started to limp away, dragging his petrified leg behind him as he walked, but stopped after no more than a few feet.
Well, aren't you three coming? You need to be outfitted for your new sashes,
he said as a red-crested roc flew in lazy circles around the Peridexian tree.
Besides, it's not every day you'll get the chance to meet a unicorn.
Congratulations to Felix, Argy, and Moxie on earning their first merit badge. Not to mention surviving the wrath of a phoenix. At this rate, it sounds like they're in for an exciting summer. Make sure you've submitted your Camp Myth contest entries. I know, we said the deadline was yesterday, but we'll give you just one more day. Remember, the winner will get to create a character to be featured in a future Camp Myth story. You don't want to lose your chance to help Felix, Argy, and Moxie in their adventures, do you? Camp Myth Phoenix Watching is a Cast of Wonders production brought to you by Wolfsbane Publishing. It features the voice talents of Graham Dunlop as Felix the Fae, Alistair Stewart as Argy the Cyclops, Marguerite Kenner as Moxie the Kitsune, Kate Baker as Tessa the Kitsune, Adam Black as Loam the Goblin, Tina Connolly as Lil the Dryad, Christina Ellis as Nurse Withers the Redcap, Alethea Contes as Althea the Sphinx, Ian Stewart as Asterion the Minotaur, and Barry J. Northern as Brontes the Cyclops. You can learn more about the world of Camp Myth at our website, castofwonders.org. Each weekly episode is released under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives license. Share it, but don't change it or sell it. The Camp Myth theme music, August, is by Alexi Nov from musicalley.com. Thanks for listening.